I'm Silver, a born clairvoyant, near-death experiencer, and I work with women to reconnect them with their clarity and agency. I'm writing a book, and I was researching Michelangelo and the way he was elected from the elites of Florence at the time. At a really young age, he was elected for patronage at 14 and was kept within those elite circles and trained to sculpt and everything. It just reminded me of what is going on today with everything we're finding out in the Epstein files. And there's no evidence that anything was going on like that. But then I say to myself, well, why would there be? I'm really struggling to accept this, what seems to be around the world, and power and money and the influence and isolation that comes along with it, and the involvement of so many icons of so many sectors of the world. I know a lot of you probably have opinions on this, but I purposely don't watch the news. And I found out about this because Deepak Chopra first came into my feed, and I made a video about this, his book of 7 spiritual laws I've loved for so many years, and I had a really hard time with that. But then because I watched this stuff about Deepak, more kept coming onto my feed, and I learned a lot more about the severity of what was going on and how this had been going on way before there were emails or cell phones or videos, and all this activity was able to be kept secret for so long. And I wasn't naive. I know, there are human trafficking groups for a reason. But I honestly, if somebody had told me about this, I would not have believed, because I really thought that this kind of behavior was spotty. And it was probably more an outcome of maybe perpetuated abuse. How they say, shit rolls downhill. You see that a lot with abuse and stuff. And I think there's a lot of people who may be really dark and damaged because of circumstance. And then there's a lot of people who genealogically, they have certain things expressed in their DNA and stuff, and that they're born a certain way. But I never would have believed this was possible. And it's been really messing with me, because now it seems like my whole worldview has shifted, and now it has to expand to include the potential of people who become wealthy could be more likely to encounter somebody in these circles. And I can't fathom that. I know. And I'll just say this, I'll be blunt, and you guys, you can say this is ignorant or whatever, I don't care. But I know if I had $10 million, I would be like, oh my God, I'm going to buy a house in the mountains, and I would not, just because I had $10 million, no way would I go from here to there or any amount of money. And I know that as a fact. And I know you guys only parasocially know me, but I know that. And so I think I projected that. I really thought humanity is of God by nature. We are of God. And things like that, they were spotty and isolated, and that's why we have agencies to interrupt extremists of every kind that might hurt others. And again, this whole thing just got brought up again because I was researching the whole thing about Michelangelo, and I was like, oh my God, he sounds like the sculptor version of Justin Bieber. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit, because it's like I've talked to my therapist about this, and and it will sound not much. This kind of sounds like I don't have a lot of integrity, but I almost wish I didn't know this, because I can't fit it in the way that I see everything. I can't fit it. But I know there is no coincidence. There is only God. So I do know, I believe I chose to incarnate during this time on purpose and my higher self before incarnating. That I believe we see the map of what experiences and what emotions do we want to explore during this lifetime. So I do believe I was meant to know this, and a much lesser version of this. My heart doesn't want to know this. Is like that with my marriage. I knew for 14 years stuff was really wrong, but I let myself push it all down until I couldn't anymore. And I want to say, the first thing that happened after I got divorced was I was talking to whatever you want to call God, and I was like, God, please, I don't want to become bitter after this. I don't want to, I know women who have become bitter because of a bad breakup with a boyfriend. It's like, I don't want that. I don't want to end up being bitter at half the world. Please help me forgive my ex-husband. And it took 4 years, but it happened. And I'm not a bitter person about men. And I don't want, I know, trying to shove this out of my mind forcibly, unknown, it's completely useless. It's not serving anyone because it's dishonest. So I know the answer is that pendulum. It's still that pendulum, and it's that centered pendulum. And being like, this never happened. Full flight from reality. It's not right. And then the pendulum swings. You hit the middle regulated target, and then it can keep going and go the other way, where everyone with money is somebody I have to be extremely cautious about. And I also know that when things like this happen, they seem so big and they seem like events. They're so big you can't fit them in your mind or in your heart, and you don't want to, frankly, and it feels too overwhelming. That's, I think, when we need to pull it back in and make it about ourselves. Because I can control, not all the time gracefully or anything, but I can control myself, and I can look within, and I can double check my personal values and my moral compass, and I can be like, my insides are solid. My insides are solid. I can rest on that. I know I'm not going to intentionally hurt someone. I know I want to get to the point where I can accept these facts and they can be a part of reality because and yet I can keep regulated around it. Because any kind of extremist, if you think of spectrum going from A to Z, or a pendulum swinging, the extreme ends are not very helpful for emotional maturity and emotional regulation. And I also think if anyone out there is struggling about this, and this is just me, but I also feel like it's completely fine that this is gonna take, I don't know, for me, it's gonna take time to be consistently regulated around it because it feels so shocking. And that's okay. I'm not gonna be mean to myself about that. And I also know in my own life, and I don't actually call it prayer, and I don't call God, but I know for a fact in my life that my conversations with my higher self and with God have saved my life before. And to me, I know that praying or talking to your higher self or God, to me, that helps like a hammer and nail. And one thing I can do is pray for everyone involved, everyone, and take that outwards even more and make sure my prayers always end up encompassing every person, the entire collective. And I also know so many good people, but the media is more like a drama magnet, and there are so many good people just slipping through the cracks each day. But that is a force to be reckoned with. The invisible, uncelebrated, just normal, good people. And I do believe that with every prayer, it's like a little ripple outward in the collective, and that matters. And I'll meet you in the next one.